I'm going to say something, and it's going to sound completely opposite of what people feel. Uh, you 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 probably recall over the course of the last 10 years, 15 years, almost everybody who sits on a stage like this would tell you it is vital that your children learn computer science. Everybody should learn how to program. And in fact, it's almost exactly the opposite. It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Granularity.ai how-to tutorial lesson, whatever you want to call it. Today is more so going to be a lesson than anything. I've been working on this for a few weeks now when I have time, and I wanted to work on this because I can see where it's growing in great importance. I recently attended the NVIDIA GTC summit, keynote, whatever you want to call it. I didn't attend it in person. I attended it online, of course. Uh, I watched it live on YouTube. And one thing that is very much apparent is that AI is moving fast. There's this concept in large language model development, AI development, that whenever something is produced by AI, it's the worst that it's ever going to be. Meaning AI is just going to learn from what it just produced, take the reinforcement that's given to it, and simply create something better over time. At least that's the theory. Maybe not theory, I think it's actually put into practice. So I guess that's the real world situation. And with that being said, with AI moving so fast, I think it's important that people don't get worried, scared, or uneasy, but instead try to find their edge in this ever-changing world. I mean, I don't think anyone anticipated artificial intelligence for what it is now to be moving at the as fast as it is presently. I think people are heavily surprised, and I think a lot of people aren't even aware of what's kind of going on in the background of, when these different conferences arise, like people aren't aware of the Databricks Data Plus AI summits that happen and what conversations are happening in there. People are not really aware of the NVIDIA GTC conferences that and the conversations that happen there. In Jensen Huang's talk in the keynote, there's so many things happening with CUDA, and I feel like, and I had this weird emotional moment today actually, uh, and I wanted to tell someone, but I don't think people would understand. But hopefully, someone else would understand. Like when I'm saying this, is like Jensen Huang has this ability for me, ability for me at least, to where whenever he begins to talk about the advancements of what's happening in the near future or the potential of things, it's very much inspirational and makes me emotional. I guess in my mind, he's like my Steve Jobs. Um, I feel like him and Sam Altman in my world are pretty neck and neck when it comes to just innovation and what's been created so far, um, as well as Elon Musk included into that like Mount Rushmore. But let's not get started on that conversation. But I do believe that with things advancing the way they are, focusing on the fundamentals is more important than ever. And with us talking about the fundamentals today, hopefully I give you a better picture on what you should begin focusing on to really drive into you as an individual, having your own competitive edge in this ever changing landscape of technology. If that is something that sounds good to you, if that sounds compelling to you, please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you like. Please make sure you leave feedback, comments, criticism, whatever it is. Dislike if you want to. All I ask is that if you do decide to dislike, please make sure you leave some type of constructive criticism. We can handle it. It doesn't hurt our feelings, I promise. We just want to know how to provide the best type of content for you. Moving forward, in the United States, at least, I don't know about globally, but in the United States, the average American adult reads at a 7th to 8th grade level. Pass this over here. The average American adult reads at a 7th to 8th grade level, with a significant portion, 54%, reading below a 6th grade level. The average American adult's reading comprehension is roughly equivalent to that of a student in the 7th or 8th grade. A substantial 54% of American adults read below the equivalent of a 6th grade level. Around 130 million adults in the US have low literacy skills, meaning they struggle with basic reading and writing tasks. Now, if this doesn't scare you as understanding where we're moving to as a society with AI now being involved, I don't know what does. And it's the factor of not necessarily being scared of what AI is capable of doing, but just recognizing that our capabilities as human beings is, as far as literacy and reading levels, are beginning to decline, especially now that AI is in the picture. I was recently talking to a family member, and they use AI for everything now, in homework, in tests, in assessments, in essays, whatever you can think of, they're using it. And it borderline worries me, especially with me being someone who did not grow up with AI. I remember, of course, having to actually spend hours of research online to write a 1,000-word paper, a 1,500-word paper, or being on Stack Overflow, looking for ideas or opinions on how to solve a particular bug. So the idea that people have, or that the average adult reads at a level of 7th to 8th grade scares me. And I think it's probably time that we start caring about books, reading, comprehension, literacy a lot more now that the AI revolution is here. Just to give some book recommendations out there, some of my top 4 favorite books, kind of short too. This one's a short one. Mutant Message Down Under, highly recommend. I think it's about 185 pages. Paulo Coelho, I think his name is, the Zahir. If you're familiar with like the Four Agreements and stuff like that, like philosophical books, The Alchemist, books like that, I believe he was the author of those two. And the Zahir is just a book that I think is very underrated. that kind of talks about relationships and love and the meaning of it. The Mutant Message Down Under just, I think, more so talks about purpose. Um, Sapiens, another good book that I highly recommend people reading if you want to know if you're a history buff, if you're an evolution buff. Um, that is a great book to read. Yuval Noah is a very famous. I don't know if he's very famous, but he is a famous historian um, that a lot of people should pay attention to. A lot, he deserves a lot more recognition than what he's getting these days, and I wish more people knew about him. And last but not least, Atomic Habits, which I think a lot of people have heard. Um, Highly recommend reading this book. This book kind of definitely changed how I think. It Don't get me wrong, the book can be overhyped, but the hype is real and the hype is deserved. So two fiction, two nonfiction. Hopefully, you guys take my advice and at least try to uh, um, not be involved in the 54% who read below sixth grade reading level. But reading is important, literacy is important, and I'm not saying you have to read these large books or small books or whatever it is. But what I am saying is read an article. Um, read a content piece, something, a think piece, something at least once a week. I'm not asking for every day, but at least once a week. Take it upon yourself to just read something in completion or to completion. But anyways, before we move on to the slides, I'm trying not to make this too long. Hopefully it stays under an hour. But before we get this into the slides and whatnot, um, I want to talk about I want to preface with some basic language arts concepts that I think we should know before we get started. And I'm going to kind of write these out real quick using this notepad here, digital notepad. And these concepts are basic language arts concepts that I think every American should know when they are venturing into prompt engineering. I know maybe you might be thinking, why should I know grammar or punctuation or syntax or stuff of that nature when I'm writing prompts when I could just I just want something quick and fast. I'm saying this because the effectiveness of your prompts will be determined by how you instruct it, how you communicate with it, how you write to it. And in writing, you have the basic things you might have learned in elementary school or middle school of nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and pronouns. So just to give a rundown, a quick rundown, a brief rundown, we're going to do nouns. Nouns are a person, place, or thing. Examples might be cat, dog, Miami, dad, mom, table, bench, right? Those are persons, places, and things. The next one that I think we could talk about is pronouns. Think of pronouns as words that replace nouns, right? You don't kind of want to be repetitive when you're trying to mention someone in a story. For example, Tom ran to the store. Tom got a Gatorade or a Coke or an orange juice, whatever drink you want to use, right? You don't want to keep repeating Tom. You want to say Tom ran to the store, he got something to drink, right? Tom ran to the store, he got a Pepsi. it doesn't sound as repetitive when you say Tom ran to the store, Tom got something to drink. You kind of sound remedial, right? Instead, you want to just kind of use a pronoun: he, she, they, them, theirs, ours, it. Those are pronouns. Later on, after we kind of get done with the rundown, I'll make a quick sentence to kind of show you the structure, right? I know for some people out there, like, why would you do that? I'm not in elementary school, but for people that may need a refresh, right, it's important. Nouns, pronouns, cool. Let's run down to verbs. Now, verbs is an action that can be associated with a noun. And so when you think of an action, think of run, think of jump, catch, throw. Those are actions being done by a noun. So, for example, Tom runs, right? Tom is the noun in that case. Runs is the verb in that case. So after verbs, let's go to no. Go back. There you go. Okay. So let's go to adverbs. Adverbs enhance a verb. Again, another example. Or before I go to the example, adverbs enhance a verb. So think of quickly, fast, very, what's another word? I can't think of off the top of my head, but Tom ran fast, right? Using that sentence, Tom is the noun, ran is the verb, and fast is the adverb. The adverb describes how Tom was running or how Tom ran. And then last but not least, my favorite, honestly, I feel like I use a lot of adjectives sometimes when I'm talking, is adjectives. What is an adjective? Words that describe or modify nouns or pronouns. Beautiful, tall, blue, handsome. Those are adverbs that describe, or adjectives, I'm sorry, that describe nouns. So, Tom's beautiful hair or let me back up. Yeah, I guess Tom's beautiful hair, right? In that case, I believe there's two nouns in that sentence and one adjective, right? Or Tom's hair is beautiful, I think is a better one that we can use. Where Tom is the noun in that case. Hair, I guess, is also a noun. But after the noun, hair, we are using an adjective, beautiful, in describing Tom's hair. With these 5 basic language arts concepts, I think you can more or less build on your understanding of how to structure prompts, how to instruct LLMs, how to build examples, and you're able to kind of move forward in, if you want, punctuation, stuff like that. I'm not a language arts major, I'm not a language arts teacher, but in a lot of books that talk a lot in a lot of content that talks about prompt engineering, you'll find that they go over these same concepts, right? I think also adding a bit of punctuation into it, but we're not going to talk punctuation today because I can take on a whole nother face. But today we're just going to talk about basic language arts concepts, nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives. Now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, I think it's only right that we kind of jump into the main point of this conversation. Welcome back. So now that we kind of jumped into the main point of this conversation, prompt engineering fundamentals, this is going to be a 3-part series. Just kind of describing prompt engineering, how to do it effectively, stuff like that. Because again, I believe that we are missing a lot of this conversation when it comes to how we're formulating instructions, how we're formulating examples, and how we're communicating with AI presently. There's going to be a huge advantage with someone that can that can build a well thought out prompt to achieve a task in one query, in maybe one correction, and then finally have that final product, versus the individual that is going to need 10 different tries and 3 different corrections to achieve a final product, right? One requires less hits to the API or to the LLM, where one, you don't know how long you might need to hit the LLM. One is cost effective, one is not. But if I were you, I would rather be or learn how to be that cost effective person to make sure that I can get, number one, the output that I want in the quickest shape and fashion while being cost efficient. So keep that in mind. And while also just being efficient overall. So keep that in mind. So what are LLMs? Since the dawn of human existence, interpersonal communication has been the most important aspect when turning small ideas into large businesses and organizations. LLMs have changed how we communicate and who or what we will be communicating with in the future. This means that individuals who know how to interact with LLMs to achieve their goals will have the competitive edge. What made LLMs so important was the attention mechanism that is within the transformer architecture itself that operates LLMs. For more in-depth context on transformer architecture and importance, I recommend starting with the paper Attention is All You Need. If you're not, I know I said LLMs a lot in this conversation. LLMs mean large language models. If you were, I think in 2022, 2021, somewhere between 2021 and 2022, there was this boom moment of when I think it was someone from DeepMind. I think it was DeepMind. Or it wasn't someone, it was a team. It was the team of DeepMind published a paper called Attention is All You Need. And it really was all we needed to really jumpstart this AI revolution. Now, I'm not going to run through the architecture. It is way too technical for this conversation. But just like in our beginning conversation, please make sure you make it a priority to read. And you can start off by reading Attention is All You Need. I will make sure I have the link in the description on YouTube. Please check it out. Make sure you give it, at least just read the conclusion. That would be super helpful for you to just understand how this all ties together. I'm thinking if there's anything else I want to include. I also want to state that large language models are not necessarily a magic box, right? Where you ask it a question and somehow, some way, it's just able to give you an answer. It's statistics and mathematics behind it, right? There's a bunch of information, billions of text injected into this model, and it's able to make predictions on how to answer your question, right? There's calculation, statistics that's happening in the back end that is being formulated to understand, to understand and predict the best fit answer to your question. Again, I'm not going to dive into the technicalities of that. That is way too technical for this conversation. But I still want to give you a start off of like at least what is an LLM. It's not necessarily something that's like pure, just, I don't know how to describe it. It's not something that was just born and it just knew, right? There is mechanics behind it. There is calculations behind it. And the way that it's giving you an output is simply by predictions, mathematics, and statistics. There are different types of prompting. One that I think became pretty popular with reasoning models is the chain of thought prompting, but there's zero-shot prompting, where the AI is given a task without any examples or guidance. I do a lot with few-shot prompting, where you give it a few examples to guide the AI's response. There's chain of thought, encourage AI to reason step by step for better accuracy. Contextual prompting, background information is included to improve relevance. Instruction-based, the prompt is formatted as a clear instruction to guide AI. Multi-turn prompting, the AI engages in a back and forth conversation for clarity. I think I've the most dealt with zero shot, few shot, contextual, instruction, and honestly, I'm surprised it's called multi-turn prompting. I haven't heard of it described in that way, but really and truly, it just sounds like follow-up questions, right? But I think that's interesting to call it multi-turn prompting. Maybe I need to look more into that myself. Chain of thought, I think, is something that is pretty cool in watching how a LLM, an AI model, solves problems and how it reasons through it. I think that's super cool to watch and super cool to experience from my perspective. But I believe the ones that you will want to keep in your back pocket and make sure you are familiar with: zero shot prompting, actually not zero shot, take that back, few shot prompting, contextual prompting, and instruction based prompting. These are the ones you will most likely see in the professional world, in the industry. unless you're making some type of scientific model, some type of really what's the word I'm looking for? A really heavy a model is really gonna handle heavy, complex tasks, then you'll end up using chain of thought prompting. But normally, it's not often. So this is the slide that I think is the most important. And when you're communicating with LLMs, you want to make sure that you remove as much ambiguity as you can, right? You want to make sure that you are specific. For example, I have here, tell me about algorithms. For individuals who are, like, again, new to this space, there is a plethora of a bunch of different algorithms. Um, and unless the model is going to offer you or give you a follow-up question, it might just give you a general answer, right? But if you can ask and be specific of, can you explain different types of algorithmic learning methods? It makes the question way more specific to where the model is able to help you way better, right? Because it knows what you're asking about, because it knows what you're referring to. It sounds so simple, but a lot of times we do not recognize uh, how uncontextual and unspecific our questions and conversations can be. And so by keeping this in mind when talking to a model when talking to an AI model, your output from queries will be way more comprehensive and way more explanatory than giving it some ambiguous tell me about algorithms kind of statement. Try to give some background context. Um, News on ML, right? Very unhelpful to a large language model. Unless you are in, again, this technical space for a long time, you may not know, or the model may not know even what kind of ML you're talking about. As far as I know, ML stands for machine learning, but ML might stand for a whole nother concept that's out there. You may not know. But by being specific, right, can you provide updates on recent advancements in ML techniques? Again, rather than using ML, I would just say machine learning. Um, but if you say news on ML question mark, it doesn't know how recent you want this news to be. It doesn't know how early you want this news to be. Maybe you want something from the past. Um, Maybe you want something from a specific author. Adding context, and again, being specific can be very helpful when formulating prompts or queries that you are sending to a large language model. So, as just to reiterate, the less ambiguous you can be and the more context you can add in the structure of your prompt, I can already assure you you're 60% there. Honestly, probably more than 60%. If you can just eliminate the ambiguity and add context, you're almost there. Because you won't believe, as someone who's seen questions being logged, and sometimes, like, we in different AI applications, you log, especially in testing, you'll log questions that users have asked. Oh, something bothering me. Anyways, I got distracted. You'll log questions that people have asked to determine which ones did the model have difficulty answering and which ones did the model have uh, which questions did the model answer exceptionally. And honestly, sometimes it legitimately just is that the question to the model was just presented poorly. It was asked poorly, it was ambiguous, and the model didn't know how to answer, right? And I think now, um, in projects, in builds, I've incorporated and made it a point that when we are developing these things, we must include a follow up mechanism. There must be a way where the model itself will ask for specifics. Because frankly, humans are not perfect and they make mistakes, and you have to anticipate those mistakes. Uh, and a way to anticipate them is just by making sure the model is able to ask questions to become to get more context. I think the Claude model is very good at this. I don't think the GPT model is from OpenAI, but Anthropic's Claude models have always been very good at this. And I highly applaud them for it. I think in a recent video I said like how much I'm becoming a Claude fan. Um, so yeah, appreciation to Claude. Punctuation and grammar is important in LLMs. It is important, but not that important, but it is important. Like, I wouldn't say not to add punctuation, uh, but I wouldn't always say it makes or breaks your LLM. But just for the sake of this presentation, punctuation and grammar is important. Can you explain supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning? This looks like a run-on sentence. You want to make sure you separate it, right? And make sure that the model will know that you're not putting this together all in one word, right? You want to have some organization in your sentence so that the model can know, oh, okay, here's the order, here are the differences, and here's what they're looking for. By adding simple punctuations, right? By adding, not just limited to this presentation, but by adding or remembering to add commas, colons, apostrophes, stuff like that, periods into the structure of your sentence can drastically also help. This might be like, it might help it 20% in how the model reads your query. To you, 20% might not sound like a lot, but that 20% can make or break how your query gets answered and in the way it gets answered and whether the answer that you get answers your query. So keep that in mind when structuring your sentences or prompting prompting your set or prompt or structuring your sentences for prompting for large language models. Try not to make queries too complex. The better you can break it down, the more helpful you will be to the model to, again, give you the output that you want. Can you explain neural networks and their applications in various fields? Doesn't sound too complex, I think, to human ears or doesn't read too complex to human eyes. But to a model who is still learning, to a model who's always learning, right? you kind of want to make sure you break it down. You kind of want to make sure that with you breaking it down, again, that there is an order, and that, yeah, number one, that there is an order, and that there is things that need to be provided, and that there is things that need to be concluded. Can you explain what neural networks are? Also, can you provide some examples of their applications in different fields? Off of first reading this, you might think, oh, this is more complex than the original sentence. The reason why it's not is because, again, it's broken down. There's, rather than one question, there's two questions here. Can you explain neural networks? That's one question. What are their applications in various fields? That's a second question. By making sure you at least establish what parts in your sentence are statements and questions, the better the model can answer your query and give you the output that you want. Again, I think 30% of the for no ambiguity and be specific in your prompt, I believe it matters 30%. The contextual background, I think is another 30%, with punctuation and complex query or making comprehensive queries, both equating to 20% each. So 30, 30, 20, 20. Again, 20% doesn't sound like a lot, but it definitely can enhance the ability for a model to understand your query and what you're asking, to then give a better answer, a better product, a better output. Keep in mind clarity and precision, complete sentences, context, proper punctuation. It sounds like a lot. It sounds like it requires effort. I promise you it doesn't. All it requires you to do is think for 10 seconds. How can I structure this sentence and make this sentence more clear? Because again, in the end, there's going to be a big difference between the individual who's able to ask a model or to input one query into a model that is structured very well and very specific, have that model output a product or an answer that may only need one correction and then it's good to go, versus the individual who might need to query an LLM 10 times just to get a close product that requires another 5 corrections. It's not efficient. It takes time. And even though model cost goes down with time, that doesn't mean that you're not spending money still. If you can reduce how much you're spending by simply being more efficient and structuring your prompts better, everyone will be happier. Mastering prompt engineering is not just about interacting with AI. It's about shaping the future of human AI collaboration. By applying structured, context-aware, and precise communication strategies, we can unlock the full potential of LLMs to drive innovation and efficiency. The key takeaway: effective prompting isn't just a skill, it's a competitive advantage in the AI-driven world. Now, I think I kept it under an hour, hopefully. And I know maybe I bounced around a lot. Hopefully I didn't. Hopefully I kept this presentation pretty structured. Um, but again, I think we are missing a key point in AI development, and that is how we communicate and instruct AI to follow and carry out specific tasks, especially with agents, especially with reasoning, especially with basic AI Q&A. It all comes down to how you write your query and how you structure it to make sure it answers your statement, your question in a way that is sufficient. I want to conclude this by saying it is a true statement that AI will not take your job, but someone using AI will. And to add more to that, that someone will be an individual who knows how to communicate with AI effectively, who knows how to write to AI effectively. This someone knows how to use language and grammar to their advantage and can use language and grammar plus AI to create very amazing products. So, if you enjoyed this presentation, if you enjoyed this little content piece, think piece, recorded conscious thought, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. Please make sure you like, please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you leave feedback, suggestions, comments, dislike if you want. All I ask is that if you decide to dislike, please provide some constructive criticism, provide some constructive feedback. It won't hurt our feelings, I promise. You can be as harsh or as nice as you want, because all we want to do is provide you the best type of content that we can. And with that being said, bye bye.